It is a landmark moment in the geopolitics of nuclear energy and proliferation. Iran and Russia have sealed a sweeping agreement at a time when global scrutiny over Tehran's atomic ambitions could hardly be more acute. From Tehran, President Masoud Pezeshkian described the pact as a milestone. Moscow, meanwhile, hailed it as strategic leverage against Western pressure. The two nations say their ambitions are civilian: to empower Iran's power grid, to strengthen regional energy security, and to deepen trade and investment ties. But to analysts, the timing and scope raise alarm bells. This agreement is very dangerous, not just for the region, but globally. A senior Western diplomat involved in nuclear non-proliferation policy told our team, speaking on condition of anonymity, his concern: these reactors, though designated civilian, may reduce the separation between Tehran's energy ambitions and latent weapons-capable infrastructure. Under the agreement announced on 26 September 2025, Iran will host 4 Russian-built nuclear power plants in its south. The $25 billion price tag frames a larger plan to build 8 reactors by 2040, according to statements. Iran already has a Russian-built plant at Bushehr, completed 2011, but this new commitment is far larger in scale. That expansion is significant for several reasons. It locks in a long-term Russian role in Iran's nuclear infrastructure, including fuel supply, reactor construction, and possibly maintenance. It gives Tehran a strategic partnership with Moscow that could cushion Tehran from Western sanctions and isolation. Indeed, the 20-year treaty between the two in January envisioned exactly that. It comes at a moment when Iran says it has exited the JCPOA regime, a move that lifts previously agreed restrictions on its nuclear program. Tehran says it remains committed to diplomacy, but its formal departure from the deal underscores that the constraints it once accepted no longer bind. For non-proliferation watchers, the red flags stem from this confluence of factors: Russia's heavy involvement in Iran's nuclear sector, plus Tehran's enrichment escalation, plus the collapse of the JCPOA architecture, plus a formal snapback of UN sanctions equals a risky cocktail. Specifically, the reactors are ostensibly for peaceful purposes, but the door between large civilian nuclear infrastructure and latent weapons-capable technology is always open. Some of Iran's advanced enrichment activity appears designed to keep that door ajar. Russia, long seen as Tehran's nuclear partner, is now doubling down. That amplifies concerns that Iran may rely on Moscow for fuel, technology, or components that could be dual use. With Iran no longer formally bound by the JCPOA's limits, inspection regimes and transparency mechanisms are weakened. The snapback of UN sanctions via the UN Security Council decision on 27 September underscores that many states view Tehran's program as non-compliant and potentially destabilizing. One senior European official described the deal as a strategic occupation of the Iranian nuclear future by Russia and warned that Tehran now enjoys deeper insulation from Western leverage. From Iran's perspective, the logic is straightforward. President Pezeshkian told a press conference in Tehran that domestic energy demand is rising and that diversifying away from oil and gas toward nuclear-powered electricity is essential for our national development and regional standing. The Russian deal fits into a broader strategy. During the 20-year treaty with Moscow, Iran seeks Russian capital, gas pipelines via Azerbaijan to the Gulf, transport corridors, and defense cooperation. Iran also interprets the collapse of the JCPOA as vindication of its view that the West cannot be trusted. A senior Iranian Foreign Ministry statement declared all of the provisions of the 2015 deal are considered terminated. By partnering with Russia, Tehran hopes to offset Western sanctions, enhance its bargaining power regionally, and secure a path toward energy independence. For Russia, the incentives are also clear. President Putin described the partnership as a real breakthrough, creating conditions for the stable and sustainable development of Russia, Iran, and the entire region. With Western economies increasingly set to decouple from Moscow's energy and technology pipelines, Iran offers a complementary partner, sanctions-constrained, regionally influential and eager for Russian cooperation. Deepening nuclear cooperation helps Russia retain leverage and revenue in the Middle East while hedging against Western exclusion. Regional and global implications. The ramifications extend far beyond Tehran and Moscow. In the Middle East, Israel in particular views a strengthened Iranian nuclear infrastructure as a strategic threat. Though Israel is not a party to the NPT or the JCPOA, the prospect of Iran gaining even greater nuclear technology autonomy heightens security anxieties. The United States and its European allies now face a hard choice: attempt to engage Tehran under a new paradigm or apply renewed pressure via sanctions and military deterrence. The reimposition of UN sanctions via snapback signals, they have chosen the latter for now. For the global non-proliferation regime, this episode raises questions. If a state formally bound under the JCPOA can exit and immediately conclude a massive nuclear infrastructure deal with a major supplier, the precedent erodes the effectiveness of future negotiated restraints. For Russia, greater nuclear entanglement in Iran may make it a more direct target of Western sanctions or diplomatic maneuvers, but also increases Moscow's global nuclear technology footprint. Several key developments over the coming months will determine how this new phase plays out. Reactor construction. Timeline: will the 4 plants move from memorandum of understanding to groundbreaking? Monitoring for dual-use equipment, procurement chains and Russian oversight will be crucial. Fuel cycle arrangements. Will Russia supply uranium or provide enrichment services? Will Iran insist on domestic enrichment? The answer impacts the weapons-capable risk. Inspection. Transparency regime. With the JCPOA terminated, how will the IAEA maintain access in Iran? Will Russia insist on its own safeguards? Diplomatic responses. How will the US, Europe, Israel and regional states respond? Will there be new sanctions, covert operations or renewed negotiations? Russia-Iran alignment. Will this deal mark the start of a full-scale strategic alignment, or will underlying differences, for example, Russia's ties to Israel, constrain deeper cooperation? Within days of the deal announcement, Western capitals expressed concern. A US State Department spokesman described the deal as raising serious questions about the direction of Iran's nuclear ambitions. In Brussels, EU foreign policy officials warned the Pact undermines efforts to preserve a limits-based order on Iran's nuclear program. Tehran, in turn, celebrated the deal as proof that sanctions cannot indefinitely block its progress. President Pezeshkian said Iran will not be held hostage by Western pressure any longer. Moscow emphasized the economic dimension. Putin's Kremlin called the deal a win-win, emphasizing Russia's ability to export high-tech nuclear equipment to a direct partner, sidestepping Western financing and controls. All of the provisions of the 2015 deal are considered terminated. Iranian Foreign Ministry statement: this agreement is very dangerous, not just for the region, but globally. Western diplomat at its core, the Iran-Russia nuclear deal marks a strategic inflection point. It reflects Tehran's rejection of the older, limited-scope nuclear diplomacy of the JCPOA era and Moscow's ambition to deepen its foothold in the Middle Eastern nuclear sector. For the US and Europe, the question is no longer simply can we prevent Iran from acquiring a bomb, but also can we prevent Iran from acquiring the infrastructure that makes the bomb option credible. As construction crews begin work, as procurement lists are drawn up, and as Russian engineers arrive in Iran's coastal provinces, the international community must decide whether containment through diplomacy, deterrence through sanctions, or direct confrontation is the next step. In the words of one senior non-proliferation analyst, what we are watching is not just 4 reactors, it is the rewriting of the rules for how nuclear deals are done in a multipolar world. Unless this shift is addressed proactively, the era of negotiated nuclear restraint may well give way to one of confrontation and strategic instability.